The Selnar ships moved like a dark cloud through space. Hundreds of black vessels with sharp edges and glowing purple lights. They had taken over 30 star systems in 10 years. No one could stop them. Their method never changed. They came with many ships, destroyed any who fought back, and forced the local people to work for them. Commander Eric Russell stood in front of the big screen on the bridge of his ship. He watched as the last human outpost in the Procyon system sent out weak distress calls before going silent. That Selnar had just taken over humanity's closest friend and trading partner. According to all reports, Earth would be next. "They'll be at our doorstep in less than 2 weeks," said Eric to the room full of high-ranking officers. Admiral Patel shook his head. "The defense fleet is not ready. We need more time." Eric had been saying for months that normal battle plans would not work against the Selnar. Their ships moved together like they shared one brain. They could react faster than any human fleet. But as the youngest person in the war room, his ideas were often ignored. "We need to try something different," Eric said. "Something they won't expect." "Like what?" asked Admiral Patel with a tired look. "Our biggest ships can't even dent their shields." The meeting ended with the same plan as before: build a defensive line and hope it would hold. Eric knew it wouldn't be enough. Later that day, Eric visited the research lab on the space station. His old friend Dr. Olivia Grant was working on something that might help. The lab was filled with blinking computers and strange devices. "How's the SHIELD project coming along?" Eric asked. Olivia looked up from her work. Her red hair was messy and dark circles showed under her eyes. She hadn't slept much lately. "It works in theory," she said, pointing to a small model of a ship. "This new shield can change its pattern quickly. It might be able to block Selnar weapons for a short time. But it uses too much power and isn't stable yet." "We're out of time," Eric said. "That Selnar just took Procyon." Olivia's face went pale. "My sister was stationed there." "I'm sorry," Eric said softly. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Olivia straightened her back. "The U.S. Defiant has my shield system installed," she said. "It's the only ship that does. The system isn't fully tested, but it's our best shot." The U.S. Defiant was a new type of destroyer, smaller than a battleship but faster and more maneuverable. It was meant to be the first of many, but the others weren't built yet. 3 days later, the long-range sensors detected the Selnar fleet entering the outer solar system. They had arrived earlier than expected. The defense fleet wasn't in position. Earth wasn't ready. Captain George Winters of the U.S. Defiant was called to an emergency meeting. He was a tall man with gray at his temples and steady hands. When he entered the command center, he found only Admiral Patel and Commander Russell waiting. "Captain," said the Admiral, "I have orders for you." The orders were simple but terrible. "Take the Defiant to Neptune's orbit. Delay the Selnar fleet by any means necessary. Buy time for civilian ships to evacuate Earth." "How long do you need?" Captain Winters asked. "Every minute counts," said the Admiral. "Every ship we can get off planet might be the difference between humanity's survival or extinction." Captain Winters nodded. He understood what wasn't being said. This was a one-way mission. "Dr. Grant has volunteered to go with you," Eric said. "She knows the shield system better than anyone." Within hours, the U.S. Defiant was prepared for launch. The crew of 82 men and women boarded knowing their chances of return were slim. Dr. Grant brought her equipment and her determination. Captain Winters brought his courage and experience. As the ship pulled away from the space station, they could see the evacuation already starting. Thousands of ships, large and small, loading with people and supplies. The Defiant would be the only thing standing between those helpless ships and the approaching enemy. Captain Winters looked at his crew on the bridge. "Set course for Neptune. Maximum speed." The small human ship raced outward to meet the invaders, carrying humanity's last hope. The U.S. Defiant reached Neptune's orbit in record time. Captain Winters ordered the ship to hide behind one of Neptune's larger moons. From there, They could watch the approaching Selnar fleet without being seen. Captain Winters called all 82 crew members to the mess hall. The room was crowded as everyone squeezed in. Some sat at tables, others stood against walls. All eyes were on their captain. "I won't sugarcoat this," Captain Winters said. His voice was calm despite what he had to say. "Our mission is to delay the Selnar fleet while Earth evacuates. Command doesn't expect us to come back." A heavy silence filled the room. Everyone knew the mission was dangerous, but hearing it stated so plainly made it real. Lieutenant Samantha Kelly raised her hand. She was the ship's weapons officer, young but already respected for her skills. "Sir, our weapons can't hurt their ships. Even with all our missiles, we can't stop a fleet that size." "That's why we're here," said Dr. Olivia Grant, stepping forward. She had dark circles under her eyes from working through the night. "The shield system on this ship is different. We can reverse it to make a weapon." Engineer Paul Adams frowned. "Reverse a shield? How would that work?" Dr. Grant used simple terms to explain. "That Selnar ships talk to each other through a special connection. They share one mind. My shield can send out energy that disrupts this connection." She paused. "But to work, we need to get very close to them, and using this much power will likely burn out our engines. So even if it works, we'll be stuck there," said Lieutenant Kelly. Captain Winters nodded. "That's the mission. We're the only ship with this technology. If we can confuse their fleet even for a few hours, thousands more people can escape Earth." The room was quiet again. Then Engineer Adams stood up. "My family is on Earth. If we can give them time to get away, I'm in." One by one, others nodded or spoke up. Not everyone was brave with words, but they all stayed. No one asked to leave. "Get to your stations," Captain Winters ordered. "The Selnar will be here soon." On the bridge, Lieutenant Kevin Daniels watched his navigation screen carefully. He was the ship's pilot, with quick hands and sharp eyes. "Enemy fleet approaching, sir," he reported. "Over 200 ships." Captain Winters looked at the screen. The Selnar fleet moved in perfect formation, like one huge organism instead of separate ships. "They're beautiful in a scary way," whispered Lieutenant Kelly. "Look how they move together." Dr. Grant was checking her instruments. "Their connection is stronger than I thought. I'll need to adjust our system." Captain Winters studied the enemy pattern. The plan was to let the front ships pass, then attack what looked like a command ship in the middle of the group. If they could disrupt the Selnar shared mind, it might create enough confusion to slow them down. "Are we really going to make a difference?" Lieutenant Daniels asked quietly. Captain Winters put a hand on the young man's shoulder. "Every minute we delay them means more lives saved. Remember that." The bridge crew watched as the first Selnar ships entered Neptune's orbit. These black ships with their purple lights moved with unnatural precision. No human fleet could stay in such perfect formation. "Prepare to move on my command," Captain Winters said. "Weapons ready, shields at maximum." Dr. Grant's hands worked quickly over her control panel. "Shield modification ready, sir. But I need to warn you again, this will burn out our engines. Once we do this, we can't run." Captain Winters nodded. "Everyone understand the mission. We hit them hard. We disrupt their communication. We buy time for Earth. We don't need to win the war today. We just need to hold the line." The crew looked at each other. Fear was there, but also determination. "For Earth," said Lieutenant Kelly. Captain Winters took a deep breath. The first wave of Selnar ships had passed their hiding spot. The command ship was now in position. "Take us out, Lieutenant Daniels. Full speed." The U.S. Defiant burst from behind Neptune's moon, engines blazing as it charged toward the heart of the enemy fleet. The U.S. Defiant shot toward the heart of the Selnar fleet. For 12 precious seconds, they had the element of surprise. The enemy ships seemed not to notice the lone human vessel racing between their perfect formations. "They don't expect anyone to be crazy enough to attack them directly," Lieutenant Kelly said, her eyes fixed on the tactical display. Captain Winters gripped the arms of his command chair. Let's show them how crazy humans can be. Those 12 seconds ended abruptly. Suddenly, every Selnar ship near them turned in perfect unison. Purple energy beams shot out from multiple vessels at once. Evasive maneuvers, Captain Winters ordered. Lieutenant Daniel's hands flew across the navigation controls. The Defiant rolled and twisted, narrowly avoiding the deadly beams. One blast grazed the hull, making the whole ship shake. Shield holding at 86%, reported Engineer Adams. Dr. Grant's modifications are working. Any other ship would have been destroyed instantly by such an attack. The Defiant's special shields glowed blue where the energy beams hit, absorbing some of the impact. "We need to get closer to the command ship," Dr. Grant said, her voice tense. "I need to be within 5 kilometers for the disruption to work." More energy beams crisscrossed space around them. Lieutenant Daniels performed moves that the ship was never designed to handle. The Defiant spun and dived between enemy vessels, taking hits but still moving forward. "Damage on decks 3 and 4, called out Officer Lisa Martinez. "Minor fires reported. Medical team responding." Captain Winters studied the tactical display. The Selnar ships were now focusing on them, moving to cut off their path to the command ship. The original plan was failing. "We're not going to reach the command ship," he said. "Too many defenders." Dr. Grant looked up from her station. "I have an idea. The disruption might work on any Selnar ship, not just the command vessel. They all share the same network." "Change of plans," Captain Winters announced. "Target the nearest Selnar ship. Lieutenant Kelly, ready all weapons." "Weapons ready, sir," Kelly replied. "Lieutenant Daniels, take us in close. As close as you can get." The young pilot nodded, his face covered in sweat, but his hands steady. "Yes, sir." The Defiant changed course, heading directly toward the closest Selnar destroyer. Energy beams hit them from multiple directions. The special shields flared bright blue with each impact, but held. "Shield at 62%, Engineer Adams reported, taking damage to the outer hull. The Selnar ship grew larger on their view screen. It was 3 times the size of the Defiant, black metal with glowing purple lines running across its surface like veins. "Weapons range," announced Lieutenant Kelly. "Fire everything," ordered Captain Winters. Missiles and energy beams burst from the Defiant, striking the Selnar ship. Most seemed to have no effect, absorbed by the alien vessel's dark shields. "Their shields are too strong," Kelly said. "Our weapons aren't getting through." "Keep firing," Winters ordered. "We need to get closer. Dr. Grant, ready your disruption system." Dr. Grant worked frantically at her station. "Ready in 30 seconds." The distance between the ships closed rapidly. More hits rocked the Defiant. A panel exploded near the back of the bridge, sending sparks flying. Officer Martinez moved quickly to put out the fire. "Shield at 41%. Adams called out. "Hull breaches on deck 5. 15 seconds to contact," Daniels reported, his voice tight. Lieutenant Kelly looked at Captain Winters. "Sir, at this speed and distance, we're on a collision course." Captain Winters nodded. "I know." The bridge crew exchanged glances. They'd all understood what might happen next. "Dr. Grant?" Winters asked. "Disruption ready," she replied. "Activating now." The ship's modified shields began to pulse, changing from blue to a strange purple-white color. The energy built up around the Defiant, creating a glowing aura. 5 seconds to contact, Daniel said quietly. Captain Winters looked at his brave crew. "It's been an honor serving with you all." "For Earth." "For Earth," they echoed. The Defiant and the Selnar ship were about to collide when something unexpected happened. As the 2 shields touched, there was no crash. Instead, a brilliant flash of energy erupted between the vessels. The Selnar ship shuddered, and its purple lights flickered. "What's happening?" Captain Winters asked, leaning forward. Dr. Grant stared at her readings in amazement. Something incredible. The bridge of the U.S. Defiant fell silent as everyone watched the strange reaction between their ship And that Selnar vessel. Instead of a crash, waves of energy pulsed between the two ships. The Selnar destroyer's purple lights dimmed, and then went dark in several sections. What just happened? Captain Winters asked. Dr. Grant studied her readings with wide eyes. Our shield frequency is creating some kind of disruption in their energy field. It's like our shields are talking to theirs, but in a way that's causing their systems to fail. More energy pulses moved across the Selnar ship. Some of its weapons ports closed. Its engines flickered and then shut down. They're dead in space, Lieutenant Kelly said in disbelief. One ship down, just 199 to go. Captain Winters leaned forward. Dr. Grant, can we use this against other ships? I think so, she replied, typing rapidly on her console. The Selnar operate using quantum entanglement. Their ships are connected at the subatomic level. If we can disrupt one ship in just the right way, we could affect others. Engineer Adams finished. He was already moving to a different station. I can reroute power to strengthen the disruption field. Around them, the remaining Selnar fleet seemed to hesitate. Their perfect formation faltered. Some ships moved closer while others held position. They're confused, Lieutenant Daniels said. They've never lost a ship like this before. On the tactical display, Captain Winters noticed something odd. Some Selnar ships were moving in slightly different patterns now, not in perfect unison as before. Dr. Grant, what's happening to their fleet? She looked up from her work. I think our disruption is spreading through their network. Not enough to disable more ships yet, but enough to cause problems with their shared mind. A jolt ran through the Defiant as a nearby Selnar ship fired on them. Shield at 38%, Adams reported. We won't survive many more direct hits. Captain Winters made a quick decision. Lieutenant Daniels, take us to that cluster of ships near the disabled one. Dr. Grant, pour everything you've got into the disruption field. The Defiant moved forward, its engines straining. The damaged human ship approached 3 Selnar vessels that had formed a defensive position. Disruption field at maximum, Dr. Grant announced. But our power systems are overheating. We can't maintain this for long. The shield around the Defiant pulsed with bright energy. As they neared the Selnar ships, the same strange reaction began. Energy waves jumped between vessels. The nearest Selnar ship's lights flickered just like the first one. It's working, Kelly said. But then a massive energy beam from a distant Selnar cruiser hit the Defiant directly. The ship rocked violently. Panels exploded across the bridge, and the lights went out for a moment before emergency power kicked in. Shield at 12%. Adams called out, his face lit by the red emergency lights. Hull breaches on multiple decks. We're venting atmosphere. Seal off the damaged sections, ordered Captain Winters. Reroute all non-essential power to the disruption field. Lieutenant Kelly looked at her damaged console. Sir, weapons are completely offline. Life support is failing on decks 6 through 8. Despite the damage, the Defiant's disruption field continued to affect the nearby Selnar ships. 2 more vessels now drifted powerless in space, and something even more interesting was happening to the rest of the alien fleet. On Earth, Admiral Patel watched the battle through long-range sensors. What he saw amazed him. The once perfectly coordinated Selnar fleet was now moving erratically. Ships that should have been attacking together were now moving independently. One ship, he said quietly. One ship is disrupting their entire battle plan. Back on the Defiant, the situation was critical. Fires burned on multiple decks. The life support system struggled to maintain breathable air. But the crew kept fighting. Dr. Grant worked with shaking hands as smoke filled the bridge. Captain, I found something in their communication pattern. The disruption isn't just affecting their ships, it's affecting their hive mind itself. Captain Winters moved to her station. What do you mean? The Selnar think as one mind spread across many bodies, she explained. Our disruption is forcing individual ships to think for themselves. They don't know how to do that. It's causing confusion throughout their fleet. For the first time since the mission began, Captain Winters felt a small spark of hope. They were still vastly outnumbered. The Defiant was badly damaged, but they had found a weakness in the seemingly invincible enemy. "Keep pushing," he told his crew. "We're making a difference." Outside, the battle continued. The Defiant limped toward another group of Selnar ships, its disruption field spreading chaos. 3 hours into the battle, the U.S. Defiant still fought. By all normal rules of space combat, the small human ship should have been destroyed long ago. But this was not a normal battle. Incoming fire from the left, Lieutenant Kelly warned. The Defiant shuddered as energy beams struck its weakened shields. Lieutenant Daniels moved the ship in a tight spiral, avoiding the worst of the attack. "Shield at 7%, Engineer Adams reported. His uniform was torn and dirty. Like everyone else on the bridge, he had been working nonstop since the battle began. Captain Winters studied the tactical display. 5 Selnar ships now drifted powerless in space. Several others moved erratically, their perfect coordination broken. But dozens more were still attacking. "Dr. Grant, report," he called. Dr. Grant looked up from her station. Her face was streaked with sweat and soot from a small fire that had broken out earlier. "The disruption field is working better than I expected," she said. "Each Selnar ship we disable seems to increase the confusion in their network. It's like removing nodes from their shared brain." An explosion rocked the ship. Officer Martinez was thrown from her seat. Lieutenant Kelly helped her back up. "Engine room reports we can't take much more," Adams said. "Main power is failing." Captain Winters made a quick decision. "Lieutenant Daniels, take us toward that group of 3 ships at coordinates 227 by 184. Dr. Grant, focus the disruption field on the lead ship." "Sir, that will drain the last of our shield power," Adams warned. "I know," Winters replied. "But every ship we disable buys more time for Earth." The damaged Defiant turned and moved toward a new group of enemy vessels. Its engines sputtered, pushing the ship forward on less than half power. Meanwhile, the Selnar collective mind was experiencing something new: confusion. For thousands of years, the hive mind had conquered worlds with perfect coordination. Each ship knew exactly what every other ship was doing. But now, parts of their network were going dark. Other parts were sending strange, contradictory signals. A group of Selnar ships that should have been attacking together were now moving in different directions. 2 collided, causing damage to both. Back on Earth, Admiral Patel watched the battle with growing hope. The evacuation was proceeding faster than expected. Thousands of ships had already left Earth's orbit, carrying civilians to safety. "The Defiant has been fighting for over 3 hours, said a young officer beside him. "How is that possible?" "Because they're doing the unexpected," Admiral Patel replied. "The Selnar have conquered 30 worlds, all of which fought in traditional ways. Captain Winters is showing us that humans can be unpredictable." On the Defiant, the situation was growing desperate. Life support had failed on 3 decks. The medical bay was full of injured crew members. The ship's hull was breached in multiple places, sealed off by emergency bulkheads. Yet the human crew kept fighting. When standard weapons failed, Lieutenant Kelly adapted mining charges into makeshift torpedoes. When navigation systems were damaged, Lieutenant Daniels flew using visual references. When communications went down between decks, the crew created a relay system with people running messages. Dr. Grant worked tirelessly, improving the disruption field with each encounter. She noticed something interesting about the disabled Selnar ships. "Captain, look at this," she said, pointing to her screen. "The Selnar ships we've disabled aren't completely dead. They're sending out signals, but different ones than before." "Different how?" Captain Winters asked. "They're not synchronized anymore. Each disabled ship is broadcasting independently." This was a major discovery. The Selnar had always operated as one mind. The idea of individual ships acting independently was completely new. Engineer Adams joined them, looking at the readings. It's like we're forcing them to think as individuals, not as a collective. A direct hit from a Selnar cruiser sent everyone tumbling. The lights on the bridge went out completely for several seconds before the emergency system kicked in. Main power gone, Adams reported. Operating on emergency reserves only. Captain Winters looked around at his battered bridge. Despite the damage, despite the near-impossible odds, his crew was still fighting. Each person doing their job with grim determination. 6 Selnar ships disabled, Lieutenant Kelly reported, and at least 15 others showing signs of disruption. Captain Winters nodded. Keep pushing. Every minute we stay alive is another minute for Earth. The small human ship, damaged but not defeated, continued its mission against the massive alien fleet. 5 hours into what should have been a short, one-sided battle, the U.S. Defiant still held its position near Neptune. The small human ship was now barely recognizable. Its hull was scorched black from energy blasts. Pieces of its outer armor floated in space nearby. Several sections were open to space, sealed off from the rest of the ship. On Earth, Admiral Patel could hardly believe what he was seeing. The tactical display showed the Selnar fleet in disarray. 8 ships were completely disabled. At least 20 more were moving erratically, no longer part of the perfect formation. One ship, he said to the officers around him. One ship is holding back an entire invasion fleet. The evacuation continued at full speed. Civilian ships launched every 30 seconds, carrying people away from Earth to safety. How much longer do we need? Admiral Patel asked. At current rates, another 2 hours to get the remaining civilian ships out, an officer replied. Admiral Patel nodded grimly. Send a message to the Defiant. Tell them to hold just a little longer. On the Defiant, conditions were desperate. The bridge was dark except for the glow of emergency lights and a few working consoles. The air was thin and cold. Life support was operating at minimum levels to save power. Captain Winters sat in his command chair, which was now cracked and partially melted from an electrical fire. Blood ran down the side of his face from a cut on his forehead, but he ignored it. Status report, he ordered, his voice hoarse from the smoky air. Lieutenant Kelly looked up from her tactical station. 8 Selnar ships completely disabled. We're holding position near the latest one we affected. Engineer Adams worked on an open panel, trying to restore power to critical systems. Emergency power at 23% and falling. Main engines are completely offline. We're running on maneuvering thrusters only. Life support, Captain Winters asked. Functioning on decks 1 and 2 only, Adams replied. The rest of the ship is either sealed off or open to space. Dr. Grant moved to the captain's side. Her lab coat was gone, replaced by a standard emergency oxygen mask. Captain, I've been analyzing the data from our encounters with the Selnar. I think I found something important. She pulled up a display showing energy patterns from the disabled Selnar ships. These signals from the disabled ships, they're not random. They're developing new patterns. Individual patterns. What does that mean? Captain Winters asked. The Selnar think as one mind, she explained. But our disruption is forcing parts of that mind to function independently. It's like we're teaching them to be individuals. Engineer Adams joined them, wiping grease from his hands. Can we use that somehow? Dr. Grant nodded slowly. Maybe. If we could broadcast a message directly into their network, not just disruptive noise, but actual information. A nearby console beeped. Lieutenant Kelly checked it. Message from Earth. Admiral Patel says the evacuation needs 2 more hours. Captain Winters looked around at his battered bridge and exhausted crew. 2 more hours. Can we hold that long? Engineer Adams shook his head. Not likely, sir. Power systems are failing faster than I can repair them. Dr. Grant suddenly straightened. I have an idea. A crazy idea. Those have been working well for us so far, Captain Winters said with a tired smile. The Selnar communicate through quantum entanglement, Dr. Grant explained. Their ships are linked at the subatomic level. If we could reverse our communication array and connect it to the disruption field, we might be able to broadcast a message directly into their network. What kind of message? Lieutenant Kelly asked. Us, Dr. Grant said simply. Human thoughts. Individual thinking. Everything that makes us different from them. Captain Winters considered this. Could it work? Honestly, I don't know, Dr. Grant admitted. But our power systems are failing. We've maybe got an hour left before complete shutdown. This might be our last chance to make a difference. Just then, the ship rocked from another hit. More warning lights flashed across the few working consoles. 3 Xelnar cruisers approaching. Lieutenant Daniels reported from the navigation station. They've adapted their attack pattern. They're staying outside our disruption field range. Captain Winters made his decision. Dr. Grant, prepare your message system. Lieutenant Kelly, use whatever weapons we have left to keep them busy. Engineer Adams, give Dr. Grant all the power you can spare. The crew moved with renewed purpose. Despite their exhaustion, despite the damage to their ship, they weren't giving up. Outside, the battle continued. The small, battered human ship faced the still massive alien fleet. But something had changed. The crew of the U.S. Defiant worked quickly to implement Dr. Grant's plan. Engineer Adams rerouted the last of their power to the communication array. Lieutenant Kelly used the few remaining weapons to keep the approaching Xelnar ships at bay. Dr. Grant modified the disruption field to carry more than just interference. How does this work exactly? Captain Winters asked as he helped Dr. Grant connect equipment on the bridge. The Xelnar think as one mind, she explained. They don't understand individual thought. My idea is to send them something they've never experienced. Human consciousness. Our thoughts, emotions, memories. You want to talk to their hive mind? Lieutenant Daniels asked, looking up from his navigation controls. Not just talk, Dr. Grant said. I want to show them what makes humans different. Our individuality. Captain Winters nodded slowly. How do we do that? Dr. Grant held up a small device. This is a neural scanner. It's usually used in medical bays to check brain activity. I've modified it to record thought patterns and convert them into data that can be transmitted. You want us to share our thoughts? Lieutenant Kelly asked. Yes, each of us will record a short message, not just words, but emotions, memories, everything that makes us who we are. The idea was strange, but at this point, the crew was willing to try anything. They had already accomplished the impossible by holding off the Xelnar fleet for over 5 hours. I'll go first, Captain Winters said. He put the device on his head and closed his eyes. Dr. Grant activated it and nodded for him to speak. My name is George Winters, he began. I'm the captain of this ship. I have a duty to my crew and to Earth. I choose to fight not because I want to destroy, but because I want to protect. As he spoke, the device recorded not just his words, but the emotions behind them, his sense of duty, his care for his crew, his hope for humanity's future. When he finished, Dr. Grant checked the readings. It worked. The device captured your thought patterns. One by one, other crew members took turns with the device. Lieutenant Kelly spoke of her love for Earth's oceans and her determination to see them again. Engineer Adams shared memories of his family and his hope that they had escaped safely. Lieutenant Daniels talked about his childhood dream of flying among the stars. Dr. Grant recorded her own message last. She spoke of scientific curiosity, the desire to understand the universe, and the belief that knowledge should be shared, not used to conquer. Now what? Captain Winters asked when they had finished. Now we transmit everything into their network, Dr. Grant said. She moved to her console and began the final preparations. The disruption field has created openings in their communication system. We'll use those to send our messages. The ship rocked as another energy beam struck their weakened shields. Shields failing, Engineer Adams reported. We got maybe 10 minutes before they're gone completely. Captain Winters looked around at his crew. "This is our last shot. Make it count." Dr. Grant activated the system. The Defiant's communication array began broadcasting the recorded thoughts and emotions directly into the Selnar network. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The nearest Selnar ships stopped firing. Their movements became erratic, as if confused. Some began moving away from the Defiant. Others simply drifted. "It's working," Lieutenant Kelly said in amazement. "They're responding to our transmission." On the tactical display, they could see the disruption spreading through the Selnar fleet. Ship after ship broke formation. Some turned away completely. Others moved toward each other, seemingly trying to communicate in new ways. "What's happening to them?" Lieutenant Daniels asked. Dr. Grant monitored the readings closely. The Selnar have always been a hive mind, one consciousness spread across many bodies. They've never experienced individual thought before. We're showing them what it means to be human, to think for yourself, to have your own memories and emotions. We're teaching them individuality, Captain Winters said quietly. The transmission continued for several minutes. The human thoughts and emotions flowed into the Selnar network, spreading from ship to ship. The once coordinated alien fleet became increasingly disorganized. Then something unexpected happened. One of the disabled Selnar ships began broadcasting back to the Defiant. It wasn't using normal communication frequencies, but the same quantum channel they were using for their transmission. "They're responding," Dr. Grant said in amazement. "They're trying to communicate with us." The message was strange. Not words or images, but patterns of thought that the ship's computer struggled to interpret. It felt like confusion mixed with curiosity. Questions without words. The U.S. Defiant drifted silently in space. Its power was gone. Life support systems ran on the last emergency batteries, providing just enough air and heat to keep the crew alive. The ship that had held off an alien armada for nearly 6 hours was now dark and still. On the bridge, Captain Winters and his crew waited. There was nothing more they could do. Either their plan had worked or Earth would fall. "How long until we run out of air?" Lieutenant Kelly asked quietly. "About 4 hours," Engineer Adams replied. "After that, the temperature will drop quickly." Captain Winters looked around at his brave crew. "We've done everything we could. No matter what happens next, I want you all to know that I'm proud to have served with you." Suddenly, Lieutenant Daniels pointed at the view screen. "Look!" Through the viewport, they could see the Selnar fleet. The alien ships were moving, but not toward Earth. Some were turning away. Others were gathering in small groups, as if communicating with each other. The perfect formation that had made them so deadly was completely gone. "They're confused," Dr. Grant said. "Our transmission disrupted their hive mind. They don't know what to do." Just then, a small light blinked on one of the few working consoles. Lieutenant Kelly moved to check it. "It's a message from Earth," she said. "They're sending ships to rescue us. The Selnar fleet is retreating." A cheer went up from the exhausted crew. Their impossible mission had succeeded. They had held the line long enough for Earth to evacuate its most vulnerable citizens. And somehow, they had done even more. They had turned back the invasion itself. 3 hours later, rescue ships from Earth arrived. They found the Defiant barely functioning, its crew alive, but in desperate need of medical attention. As they were transferred to the rescue vessels, they watched the remains of the Selnar fleet moving away from the solar system. "What do you think will happen to them now?" Lieutenant Daniels asked Dr. Grant as they sat in the medical bay of the rescue ship. "I don't know," she replied. "We showed them something they had never experienced before. Individual thought. It will change them forever." 1 month later, a ceremony was held on Earth to honor the crew of the U.S. Defiant. All 82 crew members had survived, though many had injuries that would take time to heal. Admiral Patel presented Captain Winters with Earth's highest military honor. "Your actions saved countless lives," the Admiral said, "and you may have changed the course of human history." As the ceremony ended, an officer rushed in with urgent news. A single Selnar ship had entered the solar system. But unlike before, it was broadcasting on standard communication frequencies. It was asking to talk. The message was played for Captain Winters and his senior officers. It was strange, the words slightly incorrect, as if the speaker was still learning how to communicate as an individual. "We wish to speak," the Selner voice said. "We are change. Your thoughts have given us new understanding. Some of us wish to learn more about being separate but together. Not one mind, but many minds working together." Dr. Grant looked at Captain Winters in amazement. "They're developing individuality. They're becoming separate beings. Is that good or bad?" Lieutenant Kelly asked. Captain Winters considered this. "I don't know, but it's different, and different is what we needed." Over the next year, more Xelnar ships returned to Earth's solar system, not as invaders, but as visitors seeking to understand. The species that had conquered 30 worlds with their perfect unity was now learning something new: how to be individuals who chose to work together rather than parts of a single mind. The event became known as the Defiant Transformation. A single human ship, against impossible odds, had not only held the line but had changed an enemy into something that might someday become a friend. Earth rebuilt its defenses, stronger than before. New ships were constructed using the lessons learned from the battle. But the greatest lesson wasn't about shields or weapons. It was about what made humans unique: their individuality, creativity, and unpredictability. Captain Winters and his crew returned to space once their ship was repaired. The U.S. Defiant continued to explore the stars, carrying with it the legacy of the day when humanity held the line. As Captain Winters often said when asked about their victory, "We didn't win because we were stronger. We won because we were different, and in that difference was our strength." Many years later, human and Selnar ships would explore the galaxy together, each species teaching the other. The humans taught the Xelnar about individual choice and creativity. The Xelnar taught humans about cooperation and unity of purpose. It all began with a single ship that refused to give up, facing overwhelming odds with courage.